This is a 4-part series on EVAP.
Now, for those of you who aren't real familiar with the EVAP system, let me give you just a brief explanation. Gasoline is a hydrocarbon. No matter what happens to gasoline, as it heats up and cools, and as you drive, it sloshes around in the gas tank, sooner or later, that gasoline is going to evaporate or turn into a vapor. That vapor used to be able to go to the atmosphere, but now it can't any longer. We have to capture it. We cannot let hydrocarbons escape to the atmosphere.
Now, as we look at this, we can see our major components is first the engine. Now, the engine has to have gasoline to run, and that's stored in the tank. They have a pressure sensor on top that can read either pressure or vacuum, and that reports to the PCM. And you have a canister, charcoal canister, that stores the hydrocarbons as they turn into a vapor and begin to move. The vent canister is normally open. It can be closed, but it's normally open. And then you have a purge solenoid. Notice that it is normally closed. It can be opened, but it normally is closed. And then you have all the tubing that contains the hydrocarbons as they travel. And then you have the PCM that actually controls it all.
Now, how the EVAP system works, in a nutshell, is those vapors can't escape any longer. They can't evaporate. So they seal the system so they can't evaporate, and they use the vacuum that the engine creates to draw those vacuums from the gas tank all the way up to the engine. Then it mixes with the air and fuel that's going into the engine, and then they burn it off that way. Therefore, there's no hydrocarbons escaping. Now, for a vacuum to work, it has to be airtight. Otherwise, the vacuum can't pull if it's got leaks. Now, if you look at this diagram, you'll see that the vacuum is created by the engine. It goes through what we call the purge valve. The tubing then goes to the charcoal canister. There is a canister vent valve there, and then the tubing continues on to the gas tank. So the hydrocarbons, that's the path that they're going to flow. So that's how the EVAP system works. Now, in the enhanced EVAP system, the enhanced means we now have the ability to monitor that to see if it's working correctly. First off, we know the engine is going to run, is going to create vacuum. But how do we know that it's actually pulling those vapors from the gas tank up to the engine through the enhanced EVAP monitor? Now, because gasoline can evaporate at any time, whether or not the car is running, those vapors can't vent to the atmosphere, so instead they vent to the charcoal canister, and the charcoal will store those hydrocarbons. Now, once they're stored, whether or not the engine is running, that's where the vacuum draws them from. They don't really draw it directly from the gas tank. The vapors go from the gas tank to the charcoal canister, and then the vacuum comes from the engine through the purge valve, goes to the charcoal canister, and that's where it draws the vapors from. So what do? They make it airtight by closing the canister vent valve. Now the whole system is sealed tight, airtight. They draw the vacuum. Now that's going to mean a negative pressure. They look at the fuel tank pressure sensor and see the negative pressure. Now that pressure should hold for a certain amount of time, and it can vary with different systems. But it should hold for at least several seconds. If it doesn't, that means we've got a leak. It's not airtight. Now, if it bleeds down, it bleeds off that pressure very rapidly, then we've got a large leak. If it bleeds that pressure off very slowly, we've got a small leak. So we can set a code for a small leak or a large leak.